Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. It's nice to hear a whole room say that, recite that. Our next item is reading of the MPS mission statement. Ms. Runche.
Thank you. The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
A motion by Jeff and seconded by Sarah Runche to approve our agenda. Any discussion or changes? If not, I'll call for the vote. And that is approved. Our next item is our Tiger Spotlight. You want to do this one? Our first one is for Lonnie Mercy, a retiring custodian.
And Lonnie wasn't able to join us this afternoon, but we want to recognize Lonnie Mercy. He's been with the school district for nearly 30 years, and he recently announced his resignation, his retirement. So Lonnie started working for Marshall Public Schools in 1994 at the high school, which is now the middle school. He was a mail route driver and a custodian until he became the lead custodian at Parkside in 2013. After nearly 30 years in the district, he has decided to hang up his broom and retire his notebook. And Lonnie always carried a little notebook he made all of his notes in, so he always chuckled about his notebook. He shares that he will miss the teachers and students, but is looking forward to spending more time at home and working around the house. Thank you, Lonnie, for your 30 years of service. So certainly appreciative of all of his years with the district.
Yes, thanks, Lonnie. Our next Tiger Spotlight is student recognition. So we've been doing this for a couple months now. We're going to recognize a student from each building. So kids, as I call your name, we'll have you stand and I'll read a little bio and then stick around there till the end and we'll take a picture of all of you back there by that tiger. So our first one is from Parkside, Ava West, nominated by Mrs. Johnson. Ava always takes pride in her schoolwork. She is very passionate about how her work looks, especially when it comes to her handwriting, which is beautiful. Her letters are always placed within our handwriting lines, and she uses the letters in the correct way. She is really trying hard to be sure her sentences always have capital letters, appropriate finger spaces, and an ending mark at the end. And she always has fun ideas to write about. I can't wait to see where the rest of the year takes her. Keep up the hard work, Ava. I'm so proud of you. Congratulations, Ava.
Awesome.
Next student from Southview, Manny Mao.
Manny
Moa? Sorry. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Manny he was nominated by Mrs. Karen. Manny is a great example of Tiger Pride in action. He works hard and is kind to everyone. He is a silent leader and is always willing to share in class and to help others. Congratulations, Manny.
Awesome.
Our next one is from the middle school, Alana Barrett. Is that?
Alana Barrett.
Alana Barrett. That's a lot easier. Thank you. Could you stand? Thank you. She was nominated by Mr. Flowers, Dr. Tower, Mrs. Tuft, and Mrs. Vermont. Balana has been an outstanding student, consistently exceeding expectations and evolving into a class leader. She is honest, trustworthy, respectful, and a creative student. She always gives 110% at everything she does. She is a star student that offers help and a smile to all her peers and cares about her teachers. May you be very proud of the work you do and the difference you make at school. Thank you for being you. She consistently displays her tiger traits and is a model student. Balana's strengths don't end in the classroom. She's also a patient and thoughtful friend and classmate. She is the kind of person I hope my daughters grow up to be like. Congratulations, Balana. And from the high school, Mallory Evans, nominated by Mr. Shears, Mrs. Cole, and Mrs. Kellen. Mallory has represented Marshall Public Schools in many leadership roles and is in and out of the classroom. Mallory leads students in class by example even when she thinks nobody is watching. Mallory has always been a part of the Marshall FFA program, and some of her achievements include being an FFA officer to becoming the 23-24 Marshall FFA president. She leads chapter meetings, she organizes events, she engages with members and potential members. Mallory is nice, positive, accepting, hardworking, engaging, helpful, dedicated, motivated, all the things you want to see in a student. Mallory is a wonderful student and human being. She brings that hardworking farm girl ethic to the classroom. She's always prepared, participates, is not afraid to speak up, and it is joy to have in class. Congratulations, Mallory. Finally, from Maytech, Wyatt Pullman. I know he can't be with us. He was nominated by Mrs. Kern. Wyatt has been a positive impact student here at Maytech. He works hard, has good attendance, and is always friendly to his classmates. When we think of Wyatt, we think of a very respectful student. Wyatt has worked hard and shows great motivation to get to an early graduation. He is an active participant in his classes and takes part in the discussions and helps to answer questions. He has good relationships with his peers and is often overheard encouraging them to work hard and get their stuff done. He is kind and helpful. Good work, Wyatt.
So students, if you'll go line up by where the Marshall Tiger spot is in the back corner, Mr. Coleman's gonna come back and we're gonna take a picture with all of you. And parents, if you wanna take pictures at this time, you're
Mallory,
welcome to go do
Where
pictures as
to
well.
next year?
University of Wisconsin River Falls,
Major?
animal science and criminology.
It's a great school for that. You're gonna be a falcon.
Congratulations. Mallory, congratulations. Anyway.
And parents and teachers, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting if you like. We have a riveting presentation coming up on mental health, but a lot of parents do leave at this time. You're welcome to do that as well.
But thank you all for coming.
Notice I called it riveting. I'm looking forward to that. And the budget, yeah. Yeah, I didn't even stay for that.
Okay, our next item is a public forum. Is there anybody from the public want to approach the board?
How about you? Good to see you. One of my kids. She was one of my kids. Good to see you.
Next item, number 8, is
My kids.
our presentation, our mental health. Welcome, ladies.
We got guests from Greater Minnesota and from the high school. I don't know how you guys are doing this. You doing it together? You got,
Huh?
I don't know if you,
Great Minnesota, do you guys want to go first?
Oh, I didn't know. Or what? Oh my God.
I don't know how you've got it arranged. So whoever wants to.
We have no arrangement, Mr. Williams.
All right, we'll take it however you present it. So.
I guess we're. Do you guys want to go?
first.
You guys can go first.
They pulled ours off, so.
Paper, rock,
Ours
scissors.
is up, I suppose.
With us.
If you start to fight, I don't know who I'm going to call to do the conflict resolution. So.
The microphone.
Yeah, come on up to the microphone and we'll have you start with introducing yourselves.
Oh, man. Okay.
I was just gonna say my name.
Thank you.
Let's do that.
Well, we're from Greater Minnesota Family Services. My name's Liza Davis. I'm a program coordinator, so I'm a support to our staff, basically.
I'm Kimberly Dykstra. I am a licensure candidate therapist here at the Marshall Middle School.
And I'm Rhonda Brissell, a counselor at Parkside and part of our early childhood team, so I have a split role.
Okay, so a little bit about who we are. We have a variety of staff. You'll see them listed later, but therapists, licensure candidates like Kim, which means they're on their way to becoming fully licensed. and mental health practitioners. So we provide a variety of different mental health services. GM as an agency is a CTSS provider. We're in about 90 school locations, and we also do a lot of in-home work and early childhood, like Rhonda was talking about. So we're in about 40 counties in Minnesota. You can see our main programs listed there. And we have a lot of trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy providers in the school district and throughout our agency, as well as child-parent psychotherapy providers, so CPP, working on trauma between caregivers and the child, young children. Jump in if anything.
I just said you read. You're doing awesome.
We work with children, so this is a lot of adults to me. Not as comfortable. So what we do, it's a variety of things. We kind of support in whatever way the family needs. We want to meet the family and the client, the child, where they're at. So here in Marshall, we go into the schools. We always start our services with a diagnostic assessment that figures out kind of where the client is, where the child is, and then our staff create individual treatment plans. So that will list out individualized goals for that unique client and kind of where do we go from here? How do we work with that child or that family? Some of the staff provide to families that are in need targeted case management. So that's kind of services above and beyond the clinical work.
Yep, so that is targeted case management if they need any additional help. Helping apply for their driver's license, if the family needs help applying for food stamps, different things throughout the community, that's above and beyond the therapy part. So that's kind of a different key component that we can use to be able to help them. And that is really if they're not getting the help and assistance through the county already, then we can jump in and also offer that to them. So that's kind of a nice add-on that we can do with the kiddos.
And with the early childhood kiddos families, we've done a lot of organizational stuff, like helping them, like sometimes if you go into a house that's just needing some extra organization, we've done that under TCM. We've done like getting kids to involved in therapy, other therapies besides us, like Big Stone therapies, or even getting them hooked up with providers, dentists, doctors, all the things. So it's kind of that resource and referral piece.
And I guess we should have said at the beginning if there's any questions.
Yeah, just jump in.
Yeah. And like it says, we provide services 12 months through the year. So even though a lot of our staff are in the schools, they're still working through the summer. A lot of times they're doing groups or just additional in-home in the community. So there's never a lapse in services.
I would actually tell you I work harder in the summer than during the school year. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm busy both, but literally during the school year, I'm in group from probably 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then do my in-homes besides.
It's a wonderful service to our families and our kids. Where's your funding come from?
So a variety. We always bill insurance first. So we get insurance information, MA, commercial insurance, whatever it might be. Or if they have no insurance, we work with those families too. So we bill insurance if possible. Some of the services are covered, more so therapy. Pretty much all commercial insurances don't cover any skills work. So that we need other funding sources. For the school program, we do have a DHS grant that can support the clients that don't have any insurance or are underinsured to kind of fill in those gaps. And we also partner with schools and have funding that is part of that partnership as well. So the DHS has always said, we cannot be the only funding source for those cases that there's not insurance coverage. So they ask us when we apply for those grants, where else are you looking? Where else are you partnering? Where else are you getting funding? Because we might not be here and we don't want all those services to go away. So we partner with all the schools that we work with as well. And so those are kind of the three funding sources.
Hard,
Answer it?
very collaborative.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know it's on the next slide, but the great thing that I do like about our services is that we do, or maybe it's the next one after this, we do not bill anybody. So even if there's a deductible that's due for it, our grants cover it. So none of our clients actually pay for any of our services.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
So we have different programs, like I had mentioned, the early childhood, family-based schools. The school-linked mental health program has really increased in the last couple years. The needs have increased, and there's a lot of positive things that come from partnering with schools and providing services in the schools. So these are a couple of them that we wanted to highlight. We're able to collaborate with the school staff, with special education services, with others that are working with the kiddos, seeing them 5 days a week, many hours of their life. So we're able to collaborate with a lot of the other professionals, as well as other physicians or county workers too. And a lot of times, if possible, if there's a crisis or something going on in the school setting, our staff are able to kind of jump in and help support, because they have a relationship with the kiddo to know, what the triggers might be or what might be going on. School staff, they know that too, but we're another person that can help, that has a relationship with that child. Like Kim was talking about, breaking down barriers, which I'll list out a little bit more on the next slide. Staff also run a lot of groups, so bringing together clients with parent permission, of course, clients that might be working on the same type of goals, bring them together and do skills groups, social, peer interaction type groups. And you guys do the groups, so is there anything you want to add?
Well, I'd say that's about it. Working on those social aspects of it. Some kids that struggle in social settings, it really helps them build friends. Some of them that don't have any friends, they come out of group with friends that they're able to talk to and connect with at school. I've seen that a lot over the last couple of years, so it's kind of a nice
And then they take
factor.
those friends and transition them from, like we see it even at SEED, third SEED, which is our day treatment program for the early childhood kids. They learn to be friends there. Then they go to kindergarten, and those same kids are in kindergarten. So once you've established that, then they take it with them through the years, hopefully.
And then also our staff, we're in the school primarily, but also able to go in the homes too, whether that's maybe they don't show up till 9 because they're in the home meeting with the caregivers, or going to the home or the community after school hours too. So they're able to kind of work in different settings, supporting the clients and then supporting the family unit as a whole, which we're wanting to create big changes, big impacts, generational changes. So a child isn't living in a silo. A lot of their life is affected by their family unit. So we really value that family piece too. So the barriers I was talking about, no cost to any family. Like I said, we bill insurance first. Otherwise, we have other funding and grants that cover. So the family will never see a bill for any being part of the service at all. We never have to turn away a client or referral. It never even has to be a question when a student is identified that they might be good for services. Also the accessibility, being in school where the kiddos are during the day. Parents aren't having to leave work to bring their child to an appointment every week or a couple times a week. Where, less time that they're being taken from class. They just walk down the hall typically and are able to get their, their needs met, or get their services for that session and
But a
go
big
back
one
to
with
class.
that is we look at their schedule, so we will never take them out of a core class, so a math class, science class, social studies class, their language arts class. We take them out of the gym and the ones that, yes, it's good for them to be in, but it's not as vital for them to miss. And then we take them just for that hour, instead of if the mom comes and picks them up, they're gone for almost 2 hours by the time they pick them, go to the appointment and come back. So kind of nice.
And I know I've heard Rhonda talk about too, doing even check-ins with certain clients in the mornings. They're seeing a lot of adults throughout their day, and it's another person too that they trust, that they can do a quick check-in in the morning before they're starting their day, and hopefully have a good day then too.
There are several kiddos at Parkside that we do a check-in, check-out. like every morning, every afternoon. There's some that we do it at noon. Just kind of depends on where we're at.
With the increase in need, has DHS stepped up to the plate more financially? Just a question.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And I will always admit I'm not the expert on that, but in some ways we're seeing some changes. And we work with DHS too. We're able to give feedback. There's a lot of changes that do drastically affect our services also. Medicaid, we haven't seen an increase in reimbursements in 16 years. And I think 85% of our clients that have insurance are on MA, and our reimbursement rates haven't gone up in 16 years. But we're trying to pay our staff increase every year too with the good work they're doing. So that's, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is in one way of that we're seeing a lack, but there's also good changes going on too.
Well, I've asked that because if we have an opportunity to lobby for that, we will.
Yes, thank you.
I'm on the Family Collaborative with Lannon, Murray County.
Okay.
It might be another source of funding for you.
Awesome.
We meet quarterly.
Okay.
That is one that we've been watching out for. We had a really great grant during COVID, and it went for a little bit longer, and it actually gave us the ability to meet kids that we didn't have to open up services for, that just needed a little pick-me-up during that time. And unfortunately, that grant ran out, so we aren't able to continue with that one. But that was a great service just to be able to, during that time, I think I had about 10 kids I just met with once a week for 2 months, 3 months, just to help them kind of get through some of the changes and stuff. And then they were doing good. They didn't need a full DA. They just needed someone to kind of check in with every once in a while.
Do you have a card?
Yes.
I'd like it.
Okay.
Because I'll set you up to come and meet with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our board needs to hear what you're saying. We do have funds.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I like to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, just as you're asking these questions, I think of too, all the facilitative time that mental health staff, it's part of their job. They have to do it. You know, the state is setting up rules of, you got to do these forms and these forms and these assessments. And then we don't typically get a lot of reimbursement for that. It's about the direct services, which obviously that's the important part, is meeting with the individual, meeting with the family. But there's a lot of extra stuff that goes into it, a lot of extra work that is necessary and important, but also not reimbursable. Yeah, thank you.
You perform a wonderful service. Thank you.
Well, and we can only do so with the support of
Yes.
the school districts and counties that we work with. Thank you. These are our staff. I mean, there's 9 of them. 9, yep. Right now, and they do overlap. We put them where they're primarily working, but there is a little bit of overlap too. But 9 staff, and we just added Jessica at Southview in December. So I'll show caseload numbers, and that's why it's a little low there, because it takes a while to get the caseloads up and running. But there are 9 staff.
So what is your caseload in Marshall?
Oh, we have those on there for you.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So this is from last school year, 2022-23. So 234 students were provided with mental health services last school year.
And so when you look at the numbers with the 234, I mean, I'll be honest, some of them will be into this year's because we haven't closed them yet. But some of those are also closed clients that we were able to close services with last year as well.
And that means they've met their goals, so they were able to close,
Yes,
or maybe
new ones
graduate.
this year, yep.
So this is current caseloads right now. So, you know, maybe there was additional clients that were served last October, but this is right now. Parkside has 2 staff with 43. And then it shows the TCM, so that's a targeted case management that they do, those extra services with the families for their 33 at Southview, 53 at the middle school with a wait list.
What's wait list?
So the wait list right now, I'm gonna be honest with the one here at the middle school, I am waiting on parents to get back to me so I can get services going because I have plenty of open space here in my schedule, but I haven't been able to get the parents to connect to get them. But I'm counting them as a wait list because I'm not ready to give up. I try for quite a while before I'll be like, okay, we go and move them down. I've connected with the parents and then they're gonna call me back and they don't. So I kind of bug them for a couple months every week. So we'll get there.
Yeah.
Once a student needs or wants the help, how long does it take for them to get in the schedule and get the help? Is it?
That really will depend on your worker. I guess I would say for Rhonda, she would have to talk with her therapist that does her stuff and work their 2 schedules out to get the parents, so that can come
I think,
sometimes.
so I do the early childhood, like I do birth until kids go up to 2nd grade is kind of the hope. I have a couple that are at Southview as well, but we're working on that as we got a new worker in there doing some things. But like our early childhood side of things, the waiting list is pretty extensive. And remember what we were at? We just talked about it. I think we were at like 20-ish. So that one takes a while. But once they're into Parkside, once they get into that age group, because there's different criteria, different rules to doing the DAs and some of those things, it changes it a little bit. Once they're there, then right now we don't really have a waiting list at Parkside. I mean, no names that have been given to me of somebody waiting. So essentially they could get it to us. We could connect with the parents if it all happens quickly. The kids need 3 visits for a DA. We need to see them 3 times to complete the DA if they're under the age of 6 or 6 and under.
Yep, 6 and under.
So to be from referral to fully opened is probably a month and a half, honestly. But we're providing service. Like we're making contact with that kiddo in our school anyway. Like we're in the classroom seeing if there's anything we can do to help. We're providing some suggestions and ideas to the teachers about like, have you tried this? What about that? You know, just being that extra support person around, kind of making that connection before we're actually fully open. So it might be a month and a half to 2 months, but we're making those connections and starting that relationship already.
Yeah.
And saying in the middle school, I'd say Southview and up, it's a little bit different because we only need to meet with them once. We don't need to meet with them 3 times. Yeah. And then it would depend on the caseload. So like for myself right now, if I can get the parent in, I can be meeting with the kid the next week. But it just really depends if I can get that parent in because I just need the parent to sign and then I like to take the 3 sessions that I get through insurance to really get to know the kid before I do their DA and make sure I'm coming up with a good one. Generally, the counselors here are awesome, and once they have the parent permission to refer for services, they're introducing me to the kid already, so I'm kind of getting to know the kid before I even get the parent in by saying hi in the hallways or hi in student services, and which is kind of nice.
Lunchrooms.
Yep. Well,
You don't.
we
stand up
don't
and
go
watch.
we don't go into the classrooms or I'll walk through the lunchroom to talk to teachers, but here at the middle school, we really try to keep that confidential piece. So even when I see them in the hallways, unless they say hi to me, I don't say hi to them. And I make sure to tell them that in session because you don't want it, if they might not want people to know.
It's a little different in the
Yes.
in the young elementary. They have no idea our roles. Like we're just teachers.
Elementary, they come up and hug you, right?
In public often. My kid.
I actually have that with some of mine out in public. They'll track me down and run me down, but I never make the first, like, hi. If they talk to me, I'll talk to you, but that's just, I try to keep their, secrets a little bit for them, so.
And obviously, and as you were sharing, obviously relationship is a big part of the role that we play. You need to have a relationship with someone for them to share their toughest moments and open to hearing feedback. So just having staff that are able to be in the school, walking through the hallways, they've probably already seen Rhonda. Maybe they don't know who she is or what she does, but they know she's a safe, friendly face. So maybe they'll be in services with her next year and they already kind of have an idea of, used to seeing her can start that relationship.
So how do these numbers compare to like 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Well,
I've heard
the need is increased. I would say the amount of staff has increased, so the numbers have definitely increased. If we were able to have more staff and obviously hiring, I'm sure you guys know, with schools or county workers, mental health, hiring is very hard, so.
How many job openings do you guys have right now? If you can
In the
share that?
school,
Yeah, in the greater Minnesota, in
Oh.
your agency.
probably 40. Yeah. And
And it took us, I would say quite a little bit to fill the Southview position. We ended up filling it with someone where we had to wait till December because that's when she graduated before she could get started. But I mean, we have positions that are open for a while before we can get them filled, but that's just the criteria that you need in order to even apply for the position, which sometimes makes it hard for people around here to.
yeah.
I think back to when we started with Greater Minnesota, probably 15 years ago, that long ago maybe. I think we had one Greater Minnesota person for the entire
Right.
district.
Exactly.
And we're at 9 now. I mean, the need is certainly increasing. And, you know, and when we meet with kids, we talk about Greater Minnesota, the opportunity we have in town. And there are other providers in town too. And we all, you know, say, here's different options, and families get some selection in that too. But this has certainly been a great relationship to have that available right for kids in town for a lot of the reasons you mentioned in your presentation.
They typically tell us when we get started that a typical caseload for a therapist is about 16 to 17. My is low this year at 25. I typically have closer to 30 kids that I see per year. You know, it goes down a little bit in the summer because not all of them follow through in the summer months. But we carry bigger caseloads too. But I like to have a kid every block of the day. I don't like to have a break. I like to go boom, boom. And this year I've actually also added, I had 3 of my kiddos that went to the high school that wanted to stay with me. And I told them the middle school is my primary location. If you want to meet with me, you come here after school. So 3 days a week. My high school student comes here after school and I meet with them in my office for an hour. So, I mean, that's kind of nice keeping that relationship with them too. So that's probably why you went over to Southview too. You know, we
Yeah.
keep our relationships with our clients a lot longer.
Like with my Southview kiddos, they're in the middle of something. So the kids I have at Southview are a sibling group. I mean, not all the same sibling group, but they're in a sibling group where a younger kid is at Parkside or a younger kid is in an early childhood program. And we're in the middle of doing a family therapy of some sort. So we're doing child-parent psychotherapy, or we're doing one of the trauma therapies. And just because I changed schools doesn't necessarily make it appropriate to change a therapist in the middle of a significant trauma therapy. So that is one of the main reasons why I carry 4 Southview kiddos at this time. And I was going to say, back to the staffing, before we hired Tony at Parkside, I was the only one there for a year probably.
Year and a half.
Yeah, because Christy had left. Yeah, I mean,
Christy had left. I'd say almost a year and a half. You were the only one there because we could not fill the position.
yeah, and I'm technically only part-time there. I'm there a lot, but technically it's only part-time. But
There's the last locations, the high school. And Maytag. Oh, yeah. So that's the total of all of them added up.
And we normally go through a spike in about end of March, April with a lot more referrals for when summer comes up. So towards the end of the year, that number goes up again.
How, you get referrals from teachers, parents, from any physicians or anybody, everybody?
Yep. So we get them from, I've gotten some from their family physicians here in town. The county is really good about referring to us as well. My biggest one probably comes from the school counselors. So Ms. Van Moore and Ms. Shepherd here at the middle school. The teachers will refer,
sometimes families refer themselves, or they talk to somebody who's had services and they call you up and they're like, tell me more about that.
my favorite is when I heard from a family and their daughter wanted services because they heard it from a friend. So this friend is meeting with Miss Kim, so I need to meet with Miss Kim. It's like, oh, okay. You know, so, but a lot of those ones were during the COVID time too, when we had that extra money where we could see the kids, so it was really good to be able to meet with them and see what they needed for services, so.
We had a couple success stories, and I don't know if you're on a time. I don't know if we've taken our time.
Fine, we love success stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and unfortunately, I was telling Kim before we started here, a lot of times they're doing all the hard work, and then it's really hard, and then they don't get to hear the success. You know, it's not really recognized until they're in college or they are at the next school up, and they don't get to see or hear about their successes. So, but there was a couple that some of the other staff shared. And so this was one from the middle school, right? This is, okay, so a client was seen as an 8th grader and then transitioned to the high school. They closed services in the junior year and because the client had met all their goals. The client had severe anxiety and depression. They did a couple more booster sessions just to make sure that, kind of a maintenance, make sure they're still good to go, and graduated successfully and attends college now. And this client had reached out to our therapist over Christmas break and checked in and let them know how they were doing so well in college now. And they shared that they still use the different strategies that they learned in their sessions way back from 8th grade and through high school. And then another one from one of the elementary schools spoke to a young client that was having some big behaviors in the classroom. So they were brought in, and it kind of developed into a bigger struggles, bigger challenges within the family that weren't seen right away. And it was trying to get housing for the family. So this staff person worked with the school teacher, special education teacher, the behavioral interventionist. And they kind of all collaborated to support this family to get housing and food assistance. And then it was kind of kept snowballing from there. And some more services are needed, a neuropsych to see where this child is at, maybe some other health things. I don't want to give too much detail because it's, trying to keep confidentiality too. So additional physicians were needed to help and figure out what exactly was going on with this client. And it just started by noticing some behaviors and then all working together to really support this family for what they were needing as a whole family unit. Anything else you want to share? Okay.
So do you guys have any other questions that we didn't answer?
Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
I certainly appreciate everything you guys do.
Yes, thank you guys for having us.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
And just for the riveting part, I said we wanted to kind of balance, have the Greater Minnesota here, and then we have the high school here to share a little bit about kind of from the school perspective as well, because it's maybe a dual system and how they work so closely together.
We do work for, I don't know the high school counselors, but actually by one that I do work with at the high school, I have been connecting with her.
That's me.
I just met with him today too. He's very mad at his teacher that told you that. Oh.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mrs. Peterson. I'm like,
Okay.
Good evening. I apologize. I'm fighting off a cold, so cold medicine, cough drops, and some water. I'm hoping I'll get through without too much drama. I'm Shirley Greenfield. I'm one of the counselors at Marshall High School, and I actually started working at Marshall High School in July of '99. So thinking about that, July of 2024, it's going to be 25 years already. Wow. Went really fast.
I am Cassie Rogotsky. I am also a counselor at the high school. My first year was at Maytech. In the past 2 years, I've been at the high school. So this is my third year as a counselor.
Right here. Thank you. You got the right direction? There we go.
So at the high school, we have 3 school counseling positions that are covered by 4 school counselors. And this year we serve 906 students. Our caseloads are divided by the first letter of the student's last name. So the first part of the alphabet, letters A through F, is covered by Krista Biella and Heidi Hansen. They job share. So typically Krista is there 2 days a week and Heidi 3 days a week. They have 259 students on their caseload this year. I have the middle of the alphabet, so I have letters G through N, and I have 317 on my caseload. Shirley has the last part of the alphabet, letters O through Z, and she has 330 students on her caseload. So you'll notice the beginning of the alphabet, their caseload's a little smaller this year. So we tried to reduce the number of students they had this year because we knew Heidi would be on maternity leave for about 3 months this year. So we tried to reduce that so then there was less discrepancy and less gap when she was gone and less coverage needed. So since she's been gone, Krista's been coming in 3 days a week instead of 2. And then we have Emily Kern from Maytech coming over to support us 1 day too. And then the last day of the week, Shirley and I kind of take over any responsive things that they have.
We work in 3 pillars. Sometimes we call them 3 legs of the stool. So one of them is academic, one is post-secondary planning, and one is social emotional. So the academic piece might be meeting with a student who's failing classes and brainstorming with them to figure out how we can make things better. It might be collaboration with our teachers, like our bar team teachers. We all meet with those teacher teams to brainstorm what we can do to better support the students. The post-secondary planning might be looking at an assessment, an interest inventory, and kind of looking at what careers the students are interested in, making some suggestions for high school classes that might help them. And it might be something like helping with a college application or a financial aid form. The S part, the social emotional, that might be conflict. Our high school students experience a lot of conflict, sometimes with peers, and they'll come in, they'll need someone to help them process and brainstorm some ideas for dealing with those things. So we help with that and just try to support them as they manage their emotions through things like that.
So we wanted to give you some examples of the things that we do throughout the day, because part of what is really important of being a school counselor is knowing that while you make your schedule every day, we write our passes, we know what we have planned for, it's really important for us in our jobs to be really flexible and to know that what happens during the day is not always what you planned. So these are some examples of things that we do from day to day. So as Shirley had mentioned, sometimes it is like student conflict, students being upset. Lots of times lately, I feel like I've had a lot of like breakups, a lot of relationship things like that. So especially during lunchtime is kind of a hot time. Students requesting schedule changes. So we're at the end of the semester now, so we have a lot of students coming in this week and the past few weeks trying to make some schedule changes. We adjust course loads to balance class sizes. So that is also really important for us this year because the school is bigger, or there's more students than there typically are. So we spend a lot of our time trying to make sure the class sizes are appropriate. We help students with college applications, CIS applications, PSEO. Shirley had mentioned FAFSA, that's a big one too. We do a lot of outreach to parents, so whether it's parent meetings, if it's emails, phone calls, and a lot of times it is having to do with attendance or avoidance or grades, mental health issues, concerns from teachers. Every 3 weeks, we review student data related to course failures. So we then end up meeting with those students before the next 3-week grading period. So we're always running reports for their academics. A lot of times, I feel like last year this didn't seem like as much of an issue, but this year, class avoidance and anxiety is a really big one where we work with a lot of students who are not coming to school or avoiding for one reason or another, and they end up in student services. We help them get regulated and use our space if they need to. If it's you need to work down here for 20 minutes, then go back to class. So we work a lot on those students. Ongoing skill development, sometimes that could be you have a really messy locker, let's help you organize your locker, let's help you organize your planner or get you some binders, those kind of things. Or it could be, how can you better handle this next time? How can we help you to learn how to regulate your emotions? Let's see, requests from students. This is really common too, where teachers, they're kind of our eyes and ears, so they'll oftentimes email us or call us and tell us that maybe the student had a recent, just a really big change. So maybe it's hygiene, maybe it's attitude change, maybe they said something really alarming. So then we meet with those students and follow up, and sometimes follow up with parents too. We are also part of the BAR team, so building assets and reducing risk. So we attend those meetings every week. We also attend IEP meetings and attendance meetings. We meet with students about grad progress. So we have junior and senior checks throughout the year where we make sure students are on track to graduate, and then we help them if they are behind for graduation to make plans for credit recovery. We work with the school nurses a lot. Maybe it's students who are hospitalized or students who we know are self-harming or suicidal, or we know that we have to make some schedule adjustments based on a health issue that they have going on. And then we also work really closely with community agencies that we'll talk about a little bit more. And Greater Minnesota is a really big part of our collaboration.
Next, we'd like to share some Minnesota student survey data with you. And the Minnesota Student Survey has been in existence since 1989. It's administered every 3 years to grades 5, 8, 9, and 11. And public school districts are invited to participate in the survey. And we have participated for as long as I've been here. And we just gave the survey in 2022, so we'll give it again in spring of 2025.
The Minnesota Student Survey asks students questions. So for us, it's grades 9 and 11 about a variety of different behaviors that youth can engage in. So it can be at-risk behaviors like alcohol use or substance use. It can be violence and sexual activity. It can also be really positive things, which positive behaviors are they engaging in, and the mental health questions and connections to their family, and then questions about how they're engaged with their school and community.
And these are some survey results. So the yellowish, which looked orange on my screen, which is interesting, but that's Marshall High School. And then the state is the next two columns over, and that was green on my screen. And then we have 2022. So unfortunately, those are not cohorts, the 2019 freshmen and the 2022 freshmen, because of that survey being given every 3 years, not every 2. But there was an uptick with students who said yes, that they have mental health, behavioral, or emotional problems that have lasted 6 months or more. And so our 11th graders said 28.9. For the state, the average was 32.7%. 9th graders, 23.4. And for the state, 23.1. And then we asked them if they've ever been treated for a mental health, emotional, or behavioral problem. And that was also an increase in 2022 to 19.7. And then another area, have you been able to stop or control worrying nearly every day for the past 2 weeks? And we saw an uptick there. Our juniors, 23.1% of them said yes. And then 21.1 of our 9th graders said yes. And so those were the ones that really stood out for us, and we're definitely seeing that with who's coming in the door in our offices. And then our 2022 9th graders, we had 26% feeling down, depressed, or hopeless nearly every day for the past 2 weeks, and also not being able to stop or control worrying was at 24.8%. So the 9th graders were kind of right along with the state and on that one. And then for the not being able to stop and control worrying, we were a little less than that. So those are things that we watch, and we feel like those things really contribute to some of the bigger issues we're seeing, like school avoidance and poor attendance. So those are definitely challenges to deal with.
In accordance with the Minnesota Student Survey results, we are also seeing an increase in mental health issues with our students, that including behavior problems, depression and anxiety, avoidance and truancy. That one just seems to be especially difficult this year. So many students that it's either really difficult to get them to come to school, or once they are in school, to get them to be in class, stay in class, and maybe not be roaming the halls or hiding or not being in student services. So just hard to have students get back into a routine of being in school. And a lot of students asking about online options, wanting to stay at home and do their work, not wanting to come to school every day. Maybe it's the smaller setting is better. Maybe it's that the routine of school is too much for them. So that has increased a lot too this year. substance use. Sometimes for us, this can mean a referral to our chemical counselor, Sam Onkage, who works for Western Mental Health. Technology addiction, we've talked about this a lot in school this year. SLT discusses this a lot in our building. Students who just have a really hard time parting from their phone, like even to the point where it's like an emotional attachment, like they can't cope without it. So that's a really big concern too. And we've seen an increase in hospitalizations this year too. So students who are being admitted to behavioral health units for extreme suicidal ideation, and not being safe to be outside of a hospital setting. So we've had much more of that this year as well.
So when we meet with a student or talk with a teacher about a student or talk with a parent on behalf of a student, we have in our software system, Infinite Campus, we have a counselor tab where we can record that contact, and then we're able to count that. So we looked and just counted a little bit, and our biggest numbers were the 21-22 school year, right after COVID, 3,643 contacts that year for all of the counselors. This year, we're on pace to be over 3,000 again, with it being the year about halfway through, and we already have 1,322. And in the early years, like the 15-16 school year, we weren't as diligent always with making sure we were documenting the bigger things, mental health things, but not like a schedule change or, talking with the teacher. And now we're keeping track of those things to know, what have we done to support this student, and we can go back and see that data even from Marshall Middle School and Southview and Parkside if they started in our district. So that's been a nice tool for us to have some history with our students.
So we work closely with a lot of outside agencies. Part of our role kind of becomes a little bit of doing some social work. So that means making referrals to Greater Minnesota. In our building, we are the only people, us and the nurses, make referrals to Greater Minnesota. We work with Southwest Health and Human Services. This could be referrals to children mental health, to SNAP programs, to anything that the county has. Western Mental Health, this can sometimes be substance use disorder. They have counselors there for that as well. Counselors in private practice. There's counselors at Avera. We also work, sometimes get releases of information if they have medical issues, where we talk to them. WRAP, which is the Women's Rural Advocacy Program, New Horizons Crisis Center, Southwest Private Industry Council, and Southwest Center for Independent Living. So we oftentimes help students get connected with these resources as we see fit. We also have lists when we're in meetings or we have students who have really high needs and we know that it's something that is beyond the school or beyond the resources we have. We have lists that we share with parents and help them to identify those resources.
We just, not to be too redundant, but we very much appreciate all of the support that all of you give to Greater Minnesota. That has made a huge difference for us and our students. They do a great job. Between the 3 counselors at the high school, we think we make about 15 to 20 referrals each year. Some families follow through, some will change their minds or go with a different provider. But the biggest advantage and the reason why they're the most frequently requested is that piece of a parent not having to leave work, drive the student to an appointment. I mean, they just go right down the hall to student services. And then also the cost. It's sometimes counseling is very cost prohibitive to families. So this is a really nice resource. We work well with them. We have a great team, and they communicate with our teachers as well, and we're really appreciative of their help. And then the next slide, thank you. I just wanted to say, so our numbers don't exactly match the Greater Minnesota numbers for the high school. I'm not sure why, but what we do when a student starts working with Greater Minnesota, we are able to add a flag, an Infinite Campus, to their name. And then any of us, the teachers, administration, nurses, counselors, we can kind of hover over that flag. And then it will tell us that this student works with Greater Minnesota, and it will have the counselor's name. So if the teacher wants to share something that's happened, they can easily email that counselor and let them know. And so we counted flags. That's how we got these numbers. So 17-18, we had 42. Last year we had 70. And this year, with it being halfway through, we already have 60 flags in there. So we feel that's a 67% increase. And we have Amy and Melissa and then Lindsay Morrison 1 day a week, Thursdays. We share her with Marshall Middle. And those ladies do a fabulous job. They have groups at lunch. They're doing all kinds of great things for our students. So thank you for all of the support with them.
I do have a question. With the increase in services in the numbers, is it because we're offering services now that we never did before?
That is a very good question.
Part of it, or are the kids in more crisis? Or is it both?
Tackle it, or you want me to? I think I'm going to say yes to all of those things. I think we're doing a better job of making sure that students know it's okay to admit that you have mental health issues. And a lot of times if I have a student who's resistant, I'll compare it to a health condition. I'll say, you know, if you had a friend who came and told you they went to the doctor and they're diabetic, would you tell them that they shouldn't get help for that? And then usually they'll look at you and say, no, there's medication, there's things they can do. And then we always tell them the same thing with mental health. So I think it's a combination of those things, students knowing and being more open about it. And also our teachers and admin nurses knowing that that's an option and making more referrals too, to say, you know, rather than have them miss 25 days in the school year, let's get them connected.
It was probably, I think it's, a combination of all the things. It is just so much more accessible now, and and I think it's accepted. Like, I don't think our students are like necessarily ashamed to say that they have a Greater Minnesota counselor, and because they're just right in our line of offices, and it's something that like people see you walking in and out of the office, and I feel like it's becoming more acceptable or more accepted and just more accessible to students, as well as an increase in mental health. It's just kind of all of the above. It's a really needed thing now, and we're really grateful for them. Some success stories. Do you want to start with one of yours?
Sure. So a success story I'd like to share is that I have been working with a young man who arrived in Marshall as a 5th grader from Guatemala. And he's been with us since 5th grade. And when I met him in 9th grade, unfortunately, he kind of started a pattern of failing classes and getting behind. So then he would do summer school, and he'd almost get caught up, but then we'd fail a bunch more classes. And so there was a lot of conversations about what's causing this, what can we do, interventions teachers did. And then at the beginning of this school year, I had a meeting with his parent-student connector and the student, and we asked him, what's going on, what's interfering? And he said, it's because I'm lazy. And I said, I do not agree with you, because I happen to know that you are a soccer player, and soccer players are not lazy. They run more than any other sport. They're running constantly. And I said, you are not lazy. And it was just like a weight went off his shoulders. Like he was all slumped over, and he sat back up and looked me in the eye. And ever since then, he has dug his way out. He was 3 credits behind at the beginning of the school year. Now he is only 1 credit behind, and that's only soon to be a half credit. He's passing all of his classes. He's talking graduation, ordered his cap and gown. I'm so proud of him. But it was we just had to figure out how to change that perception, because his perception was, I'm lazy and I'm not a good student. So I had to tell him, you have some assets. Soccer players I admire. That is a lot of running.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I have one from one of my students who graduated last year. She had just emailed me today, so I was just thinking about her. She was new to us as a junior. She came from out of country, and our out of country credits can't transfer as our required classes. So she had some electives that could transfer, but as far as required classes, she had to start from scratch as a junior. And she spoke very little English. She was in our EL classes. I worked with her to do after-hours classes, summer school, between all of those things. She probably came into lunch every single day with her friends, and we visited and made plans and talked about college and graduation and kind of made that a reality for her. And she made up, last year I think she did 11 after-hours classes during the school year. So she met all graduation requirements within 2 school years. Wow. And now she's in nursing school, and she asked me to be a recommendation for her for a scholarship. So I was really proud of her too. So those are the things. Those are the wins that we need to balance out everything. So yeah.
And then our last slide is just a reminder of the areas that we work in. The social, emotional, academic, and post-secondary planning, and we truly appreciate all of the support that you give all mental health, all the counselors here, and we feel like we're doing good things for students, and we appreciate all of your support as we work to find those solutions and help those students. Any questions?
So I want to just say how much we appreciate everything that you guys do for our kids each day. And I mean, those success stories are awesome. That's what we go into education for. Those stories. That's
Yes.
great.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Anne Marie, do you wish you were at the table tonight? Could we hit a topic more appropriate for you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next item is the consent agenda. I'll need a motion.
Motion.
Seconded?
Motion by Jeff and seconded by Sarah Brink to approve our consent agenda. I will call for the vote. That is approved. Next item is our financials. Deanne is not here.
Deanne was not able to be here for this meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the bills.
I'll second.
Motion by myself and seconded by Jeff. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. The bills are approved. Anything from the treasurer's report? Any-
I don't have his notes.
Okay. Moving on to board forum. Any reports from the board? Updates? I know we all enjoyed the conference at the cities and learned a lot, so I think we're going to figure out a time we can share some information with each other, so. If anybody else has any comments?
I just thought it was really interesting how much technology is going to affect all our students, that we need to adjust our education program to make sure that we're taking care of them, to make sure that they can get the jobs. Almost all jobs are going to require some sort of technology. And it was interesting how they said where they could refocus some different things, cut a little bit here, add a little bit here. We can talk about that later.
Yep, a lot of discussion on AI and different uses of technology. Next item is our administrative reports. Jeremy.
I'll just share an update from each of the administrators' reports this evening. Certainly one of the things I called out was last week attending the MSBA conference. Like happens every year, we had to deal with some weather things at the end of it, but the conference itself was really good, and we talked a lot about technology and just about how that impacts our education. So it's a good opportunity not only for us to maybe bond as a board and get to know each other more in that regard and as we work together, but I think the opportunity to hear from across the entire state what's going on, what are trends in education, what are our peers at different districts doing, and that's certainly a lot of benefit in that. Also, as we're starting to work on budget for next year, we're spending time looking at enrollment numbers, and we got enrollment on the agenda today, and we had a work session earlier. We talked about enrollment and budget, and Deanne shared some things with the board there. A lot of work starting to take place as we're planning for next year. Not including our preschool numbers, our enrollment currently is at 2,525 students. Last year at the same time, we were at 2,530, so a pretty flat enrollment number, pretty steady number, which is encouraging to see, because a lot of times we see a dip in the middle of the year, and we're seeing some more holding steady this year. Not as many fluctuations, so that's encouraging and will help us build that foundation of our budget work for next year. So I'll go through each of the buildings again and just share something from each one. Early childhood, something new in early childhood this year is we've created an early childhood literacy team, like work that we've done at other sites. So each month that early childhood team is meeting to go over best practices in structured literacy, pacing guides, and the READ Act updates, making sure that we're meeting the needs of our youngest learners as well, and aligning with the work that we're doing at other schools. Parkside shares a few things. One of the primary things, they're working this year on developing student background knowledge and vocabulary. This is part of the work towards that READ Act. As part of that work, they have some monthly themes, including WOW words that are school-wide vocabulary words they use throughout the month. So really that focus on vocabulary and how that ties into the reading work that they're doing at Parkside. Southview, he shares that SEL teachers have been using Second Step curriculum, teaching weekly sessions to all students. The curriculum offers a range of programs helping students build social emotional skills, such as nurturing positive relationships, managing emotions, setting goals, and all lessons have web-based materials and videos that help the teachers walk through everyday scenarios as they're working with that SEL piece at Southview. Middle school shares this month that student council is starting off the year with a bake sale. I think they actually missed that because of a weather thing this week. Also planning events such as a food drive for the local food shelf and valograms in February. So a lot of things taking place. The student council has been very active this year at the middle school. It's fun to see the things that the students are leading there. High school has a few things as well. 2024 through 25 registration book is in the final stages of completion. Staff is currently reviewing the book and making some suggestions for final updates. They'll be meeting soon with their 8th grade students from various feeder schools during January and February to begin that registration process. It's hard to believe we're starting to talk registration for 24-25, but here we go. MPS staff also recently attended a meeting with members of Highway 23 Safety Coalition. The purpose of that meeting was to review traffic patterns, discussing driving patterns, and looking at traffic changes. Making the intersection in the north of Tiger Drive safer was the focus. It was a very productive meeting with various stakeholders, continuing to encourage students who are traveling from school to school from the Marshall city limits to enter off of Tiger Drive on the northbound off Highway 23 in order to make right turns. And then when they leave the property, we continue to encourage them to exit onto Highway 19, so making right turns again into that dedicated lane and just making sure our kids are safe coming and going. That's a busy intersection, and as more business expand out in that area, that will just get busier. So good, productive conversation about the future of those intersections. At Maytech, she shares that work experience coordinator Shanda Walker recently made arrangements with local employers to come into advisory time at Maytech during the month of December, visiting with students about interviewing skills. The first week, students met with employers and learned about things that they look for in interviews and then the types of questions they asked and answered questions the students had for them. The second week, the employers asked students questions that they might see in an interview section, like a mock interview. Students also had opportunity to talk to the employers about careers in their fields. That was a good event for our Maytech students. At the CTI location, the welding and automotive classes are going really well. Those students continue to take advantage of project-based personalized learning and opportunities in class. Welders are using some metal scraps to build various projects. One of the things, those of you who've been out there, we recently took some old bleachers out the middle school. They took all that metal scrap and they're building storage units and such out there using the scraps from the middle school demolition project there. They've also been working on projects such as replacing a truck engine, changing brakes and suspensions, fixing exhaust leaks, and so many more things. These hands-on experiences are supporting students' curiosity and helping them be very engaged in the classroom. In the CNA lab, students are getting ready for their test out opportunities that will be taking place end of this month. There will be 19 students that complete the class and have opportunity to test out at the end of first semester. In activities, in girls cross country, Coach Marie Sample was recently awarded the Minnesota Cross Country Coach of the Year by the U.S. Track and Field Cross Country Coaches Association. We're very proud of everything that Marie has done in the programs she's accomplished with her time here at Marshall. Congratulations to Marie. With baseball, softball fields, this is something I don't think we've ever done in December, but in the process of upgrading practice fields, maintenance was able to add a large amount of egg lime in December because the weather held out so well. So we are set for spring on those fields. This week, that's not going to happen. Boys basketball, the high school boys basketball boosters and SMSU hosted annual holiday showcase. It was another great event that brought 11 area teams to Marshall. Tigers went 2-0 at that event. And our speech team is beginning to compete next week. Our new coach is Donna Van Koolen. She's done a great job getting more students involved in that program and speeches. Looking forward to a great season. In Beth's report, she shares that the Minnesota Department of Ed recently released their approved curriculum list that's part of the new READ Act legislation. We were really excited that one of the programs that we use, K through 4, the U-Fly curriculum, is already on the approved list. We also used Really Great Reading. It's our foundational phonics program. Pre-K through second grade, that is on the consideration list, and the Really Great Reading program will resubmit some additional required information to MDE, and we're hoping that that gets moved onto the approved curriculum list as well. This is great news for elementary staff as we have devoted a lot of time and energy into implementing these programs, and that work is really paying off. Jackie shares about Developmental Adaptive Physical Education, or DAPE. It's a special ed service for students with motor needs that impacts student participation in general education PE classes. Most often at elementary level, this specifically designed instruction is provided with general ed PE classes supporting students with modifications, accommodations, and additional instruction. At middle school and high school, this instruction is typically provided as a pull-out instruction to better meet individual needs. District currently has 50 students receiving DAPE services. And then Mary Kay's report this month, she shares that classroom teachers K through 12 have been provided the opportunity to apply for American Indian instruction funds to add to American Indian instruction in their classrooms. Materials can include literature books, maps, posters, art, activities, speakers, etc. Each media center in the district will be awarded a nominal amount and or resources from the grant for some additional American Indian materials based on the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee recommendations. And finally, in Dion's report, he shares that the Marshall Public Schools United Way campaign recently wrapped up. We raised $6,342, which was 94% of our goal of $6,750. Thank you to everyone, all the staff that donated for that. And he also shares that, and we've talked about our vehicle situation. We've been looking for a van for a while. We were finally able to find and purchase another 10-passenger van. They don't make these anymore, so it was a challenge to find something. We found a 2019 Ford Transit van in great condition with only 15,000 miles on it. Much needed addition for activities and student transportation. It's going to replace the Dodge Caravan that we've had for a while that we have transitioned over to Driver's Ed. So Driver's Ed got the Grand Caravan, and this new Ford Transit will be a really nice vehicle for us. But the 10-passenger capacity is good. So excited to have that available for our students and staff.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next item is our discussion items. First, review of policies 204 to 214. Any questions on those? Second, review of policy 0413-08, 410, 416, and 506. Any questions on those policies? Okay, moving on. Discussion on our January enrollment.
So I've attached an enrollment update and actually talked about it during my board report, so I have nothing additional to add.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Moving on to our action items, approval of the 23-24 revised budget.
So move.
Thank you, Bill.
Seconded.
A motion by Bill and seconded by Sarah Brink to approve our revised budget.
The revised budget is attached in the board notes for everyone. During our work session earlier this afternoon, Dion did walk through in details the revised budget with everyone.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. That is approved. Next item is approval of the joint powers agreement between Marshall Public Schools and the City of Marshall. I will need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'll second.
Motion by Sarah Runching, seconded by Jeff to approve the joint powers agreement between MPS and the city.
This is just an update of a current agreement that we've had in place. It looks at how we share spaces and facilities and that sort of thing. So this is updated for this year.
And I will say this is, the joint powers between us and the cities is one of the very few in the state that do things this way. So
Right.
at one time, there was only 2 cities and schools that did this together. So it's another collaboration between us and the city. So.
We have a great partnership with the city that we really
Exceptional.
appreciate.
Yep. I will call for the vote. And that is approved. Is that the last thing?
That's the last thing.
Yeah, it doesn't have
It doesn't have an adjournment sheet, so the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, sure, that's
Thank you, Mr. Chair.